Now, Australian officials are alarmed at Solomon Islands' planned security deal with China. The draft agreement could see the People's Liberation Army stationed less than 2,000 kilometres off our coast. Michael Shoebridge, as you know, is with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. He joins me again live from Canberra. Good to talk to you, Michael. We've known for a long while about China's efforts to curry favour in the region through the Belt and Road initiatives, through all sorts of initiatives related to whaling and the like. But the idea that it would have some sort of security or military arrangements with Solomon Islands takes this to another level, doesn't it?
Well, it sure does, Chris. You're right about things like the Belt and Road Initiative and the Maritime Silk Road. So China's promised South Pacific countries and leaders a whole lot of economic investment, great business opportunities. And South Pacific leaders have said, this is great. We get more out of China, and that means we can bid for more out of our other big partners like Australia and New Zealand. Well, that kind of savvy transactional approach of taking the Chinese goodies and getting better deals from others is now coming home to roost because Beijing wants something for that money and they've focused on the Solomons as the first place to get it. So they've now put a draft agreement in front of Prime Minister Sogavare there saying, according to China's needs, their ships should be able to turn up in the Solomons, be logistically supported, and even send armed personnel and police into the Solomons for China's own needs, not the Solomons, to secure Chinese people and infrastructure. A very direct form of military presence right in the South Pacific.
Tell us how worried we should be about this strategically. Just tell us how important Solomons is. Obviously a poor nation, a former British and Australian colony. It was very central. There were heavy fighting there in the Second World War. Guadalcanal, of course, is the name we normally use to there, one of the main islands in Solomon Islands. There's a major remnant from the Second World War, the Henderson airfield outside of Honiara. Is it strategically important, or is this more about China just currying as much favour with as many nations as it can?
No, it's absolutely strategically important. You're right, some of the hardest fought battles in the Pacific War were fought in PNG and the South Pacific. Iron Bottom Sound is known as that because of the amount of shipping that was sunk in that part of the Pacific Ocean. So it's strategically important, but think of it in this very practical way. That PLA guided missile cruiser that floated off the top of Darwin and went on to Tonga, that did the military lasing of the Royal Australian Air Force Maritime Patrol aircraft. That kind of tension and interaction will become routine if the PLA Navy is able to operate out of the Solomons in this way. So it makes strategic competition real military tension and competition right in the heart of the South Pacific. That's why it's so important.
Well, it was only just over a decade ago when Australia was effectively running Solomon Islands through the regional assistance mission to bring civil violence there to an end, to try and help get peace and security in the country. And clearly, we have a responsibility and an obligation there, but it goes two ways. Is the answer to this to encourage Solomons to reject these overtures from China and actually be engaged more permanently with them on a security basis ourselves?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Prime Minister Sogavare will get to make the choice as the current ruling government in the Solomons, but the opposition leader has already said he's against this kind of Chinese military presence, and I think he's right. So there were other voices in the Solomons. Let's hope they're listened to, but this is a matter for every country in the Pacific. Each of the leaders should be speaking up to Sogavare because bringing military tension right into the middle of the South Pacific is in the interests of none of us. It's not really a decision the Solomons should take alone.